the act of making a plan, setting some goals, is invaluable because it aligns you, and it also aligns you with the team, so they know where we're going. But the moment the plan is made, it's already obsolete, and like who knows, maybe you won't get there. And if you tighten too much grip on those goals, that can be dangerous, and you might lose opportunities that for pivoting that are right in front of you.
Welcome to the From Within podcast with Ben Osterveld.
Hey guys, Ben here. It is From Within, the podcast. I've got a good friend of mine, Floyd Marinescu, with me right now. Thanks for jumping on the show, Floyd. It's a huge pleasure. I can't wait to introduce you to the world that I have and all the listeners that follow me. Super excited. Thanks for coming, man.
Great. Glad to be here.
So Floyd, we've known each other for a few years. We've both seen each other evolve from the inside out. We've had a mentor together, Philip McKernan, and a lot of people on the show know who that is. And it's really about working from the inside out. And that's been really cool to be able to share that kind of that inner journey together. I know that's something that we don't, not everyone gets to see it. And I've had the privilege of seeing you evolve from when you first started to now. It's been pretty cool to see that. So that is our common thread. But I want you to brag a little bit. I'm really not that good at reading off a script that says, like your bio and all of that. I know you very well. You've accomplished things that are very big. Can you brag a little bit about what you do? What's your business? What you're up to? Tell me about your accomplishments. And then I know you're not the bragging type, but I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I'm not really good at bragging, but okay, I'll say this stuff to not to impress the audience, but to impress upon the audience, perhaps where some of my feedback will come from. I started a business 15 years ago. It's a news website for software engineers, sort of like CNN for programmers, and also a conference where software engineers go and learn trends from each other, called QCon, that runs in New York, San Francisco, London, Beijing, Shanghai, and Sao Paulo. This is where senior engineers go to learn about the latest trends, what's going on, like what's changing enterprise software development. I myself got a computer science degree from Waterloo and somehow ended up in this tech media space where I just love building community and writing news, even back before blogs existed, and creating community among really senior elite software engineers around the world. And the business is interesting because it's fully remote. I've actually never worked in an office my whole life, for me, being remote is perfectly normal. So we have 50 people, all work from 12 different countries, all remote. We have really solid systems, KPIs, metrics, really good culture scores. Really we keep being told by consultants how you guys have the best culture scores ever, and you're remote, which is really interesting. And I've been running that way for a long time. And I guess more recently in life. A big shift is I actually went part-time in my business, and I'm actually spending more than almost full-time now working on a nonprofit promoting universal basic income in Canada, and which is a passion of mine and a kind of a philanthropy. So I've really run the gamut. I also done real estate, done angel investing in a variety of businesses, and I'm really glad that I was able to kind of exit my business without selling it, because I think I love what it's doing in the world, and I don't want some new acquirer to screw it up. And I think it's really important to be part of communities, so still be part of that community of the staff and the mission of that business, and still support it and keep it pure, keep it intentioned on the right things, and while not selling it and still being able to benefit in its upside, I think was a different path that is typically promoted or glamorized in entrepreneurial circles. And screw the big exit. Like be part of a community and like keep a legacy. I want the business to be a 100-year company. No one ever talks that way, but why not?
True, eh? So true. Old school. Yeah. That's my grandpa. Quality, long care, build a legacy. Yeah, it's always about raise the money, blow it up, and then exit. Right. That's kind of the new way of doing business.
Yeah.
So you hit on a lot of things there, Floyd. I remember that process about how I remember you were full-time.
You were there.
You were full-time in your business. You've built this beautiful thing. Like just to be clear, when you say do an event, I just want people to know that we're talking like 8,000 people, where Brazil, like some of these places you have one of the most incredible events I think that are out there and niched out. Like if I went there, I probably would not know it's being talked about. It's a very niche focus on engineering, computer engineering and trends and things.
Yeah, even in software development, it's niche. It's for like people doing, large scale back-end programming, people who build the back end of Instagram or Facebook. That's where they go to learn what's going on. It's not even for people building websites.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to make it clear. Like, and it's mega. Like, we're talking like it's got to be up against some of the biggest events in the world, like what you run, and that's just straight up huge, impressive. And so you've built this thing. And it's a very successful company, and you're sitting there going, what do I want out of life? And I remember going through that process. I got to be an observer and be part of it in some small way. And what was that like when you were running because I think a lot of people watching this will wonder about like even basic stuff like hiring an assistant, okay? And starting the process. I know you've got really big scale, but from the bottom to the top, it's the same thing. It's letting go. You know what I mean? Like to let go and almost like the value of what I do versus hiring someone else. And are they going to do a good job? Tell me about that process of letting go, Floyd, from being the CEO to being a very part-time player in the activities of your company.
Wow. Yeah, I think even before that, at every step of kind of evolution in my business life, it's been about learning to let go and learning to build systems and people around things that I may have thought were like my secret sauce. In reality, there is no secret sauce. We like to think that only we can do something, and it's not, because if that was the case, this world wouldn't even work. Like nothing would ever scale. So there is a secret sauce, and there are ways you can codify that and train others to make decisions in a certain way. It maybe won't be done exactly the way you would do it, but it might be done better in some cases. Or maybe parts of you that you're good at might end up splitting into 3 different people that all do different aspects of it in different ways. I remember like I kind of went through like 3 different evolutions in the last 15, 20 years that all kind of have some things in common. Like when we started the business, obviously I was pursuing a vision. I didn't know if it would work. It was very exciting, fly by the seat of your pants. If you have a lot of real estate agent clients, probably that's kind of where I was, because it was sort of they say genius with 1,000 helpers, like hub and spoke model, where everything revolves around you, and you have a lot of people doing things that are easy to delegate, but still everything goes through you.
Yeah.
And that stopped scaling once you hit like 10 to 12, 15 staff members.
Yeah.
And then it became really painful, and I became really hard on myself. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what delegation means. I don't know what culture is. I didn't know like how to run a business like that, and running into myself. We are always our own biggest obstacle to whatever the next stage goals we want to reach. It's never anyone else's fault. It's always with us. And I wasn't even really being myself, because I remember at the time I was sort of living into sort of societal views of what a business leader should be, like all about growth and profit and all these things. And that wasn't even ever spoke to me either, because I created a technical community business that revolved around serving people with great content and building community. Like I was always that community guy. I like to serve people that way. It was always coming from a place of heart, like wanting to give back, wanting to create a news website and conference that is super high quality and not full of marketing, BS, and not trying to like make people go buy something, but rather just here's content that you need that will help you. So I wasn't even really being myself. Like I was sort of being what I thought I was supposed to be. So 5 years in, I actually had a mini breakdown. I remember one time I fainted in the shower because we actually tried to build a social network for IBM.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. We sold to IBM that we'd build them a social network for a particular subset of their business audience.
Jeez.
And we did it to chase the dollars. And like that wasn't even our core competency. Like our competency was building our own community for our own readers. And like I didn't know how to be a consultant, and it was very stressful. And at the time, like something's got to give, and I figured, okay, maybe I'll try and hire a business manager, like a CEO, and I can continue being the technical community guy. I hired someone that was so out of touch with technology. He used to print his emails and put them in file folders.
Wow. What?
But he had the resume. He had the resume from like news media and all these things, and like I was just insecure. I hired someone that had a good resume. I didn't actually look at like, can they actually do the work well? And
incredible.
And so after that failed, and I had to let him go. I'm like, you know what? I just got to take this seriously. So I started going to learning events for founders and stuff, and learning about about culture and purpose and core values and systems. And there's a book called Scaling Up that has all the systems you need to run a mid-sized business. And something magic happened. I remember hearing Richard Branson on stage saying, you should be passionate about your business. You should do something that you believe in, you can change the world with. And until that moment, I'd never heard anyone say that business can be about purpose and core values and about something more than money. and it really spoke to me, and it gave me permission to be myself, because that's how I always was. I just wasn't actually acting that way. And then I kind of fell in love with the business once I codified our core values in our mission statement, and I actually really believed it. So like really aligning around a strong why, and then learning obviously tactics to manage business that size, and joining peer groups like Entrepreneur Organization was really important for me to then enter this next 5 years phase, where we went from 15 staff to 30 staff, and grew the business a lot. And then 5 years later, there was kind of another crisis started to form, where like, okay, now I don't really know the size we're at now. I don't really know what I'm doing, and still like I've extracted myself from certain operations, but I'm still a key person in certain types of things. I'm still making too many decisions.
How big were you at this point?
Yeah, I think at this point we're like 30 to 40 staff members. We had like a couple conferences a year, several conferences a year around the world. It was more like approaching mid-size.
Yeah.
And then that's where learning to delegate came in. So really learning like starting to build middle management, giving away roles that were my secret sauce, like things that were revolved around me, building systems around things that I did. That was sort of my way to exit things that were core to me and into a position where I could really be a real CEO. Like a real CEO should be working on things that are 2-3 years out, and making strategic decisions. They shouldn't be in the operations of the business.
Yeah.
And I had some people internally, luckily, that I was able to groom and to keep giving work to. And I noticed an interesting effects. Like the more the less I did, the more bold and ambitious I became with my goals, because I had the mental space to even think about those goals.
Huge.
And part of the way I got myself there was actually, again, this took 2 years to give myself permission, was to start taking Fridays off. Like just do a 4-day work week.
I remember that. And I remember the struggle. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I'll just take, like, just for everyone listening, it just sounds like, oh yeah, I just took Fridays off. Like you don't understand the depth of emotional process and heaviness, the mental game that I had to watch, and I had the privilege of going through to watch this. And it was like, from the outside looking in, I'm like, just take a day off. Like you're financially doing well. You've got a business running. Like, what's the big deal? Tell us how even that was that first step. How did that, in fact, like, how did you get to the place? Like, I remember the whole thing. You did writing, you did these times away. You almost felt guilty, this process. What was that like of just taking that day off?
Yeah, well, a lot of us are in prisons of our own making, mental prisons of our own making. And I just had this idea that I need to set an example, be the hardest worker on the team. What will people think in the company? What if everyone else wants to take all this time off? Like all this self-judgment, like, am I still a worthy human being if I'm not working while others are working? Like all these things. And like the work we did with Philip McKernan was great, because he just forced us to take several days away from our busy work and think about life. And I never did that before. Never took time for myself to just think, and get off the hamster wheel. So that was excruciating. But once I started doing it, and I realized, oh wait, the world isn't falling. Like everyone in the company is still working hard. Like everything's still fine. Some people are even happy that I'm able to do that. and I became more ambitious. I was able to set bigger goals, because I had more time to think. And
amazing.
And I realized the value of thinking time, especially for someone in a CEO visionary position. How important that is.
Let's talk about that for a sec, Floyd. And we both have a very similar alignment there. Like I'm even running my own business mastermind now. We're going to Vegas in a few days with 18 business owners, and it's just even to think, well, why would you do that? Why would you spend the money doing this? Like that's how I would usually think, until I went through this process where 3 times a year we would go away. I did this for like 8 years, and then we would like put a magnifying glass on our business, life, relationships, and really just take a second and look. Never would I ever taught that as well, Floyd. The results though, I have to look back, and I think I'd love to hear what you think as well, but that's probably the most critical thing I've ever had to do for moving forward, breaking free, having the extra vision to be able to do what I do today. I think I got to go back to those times away. Like it's probably one of the things I'll do for the rest of my life, to the point where I'm leading my own now, because it's so critical. I've seen massive transformation. So are you still doing that today, Floyd?
Yeah, I'm still in that program with Philip, but I have maybe once a year taken a sort of retreat on my own, a few days, like in a quiet place. I would like to do that twice a year at least. And so I have been starting to bake that into some other trips that I'm making. Usually when you're away from home and you're somewhere else, it's good to take a few days away from, from whatever you're going for. And yeah, and because a couple of times I did that were the greatest sort of creatively productive times ever, like in terms of producing like really original material, really good content. Was really good to be able to do that. Yeah, and I think it'd be great to do that more often, even at home. It's weird, even being at home on the weekend, you may have nothing to do, but it's not the same as being in a retreat in another place.
Different.
I don't even know why. I wish it was.
I know it just seems
Yeah.
seems odd. I think we leave our whole world, and I think it's a mental game. I think we let go. I think because at home you still have everything the same. You might have a dog to feed. You might have whatever.
Your home is the to-do list. You look around, there's all the things you could be doing. Yeah, maybe that's what it
100%.
is. When you're outside the house,
Great point.
there's no to-do list. And
list. Yeah, I love that. So let's talk about basic income. I know we're
actually let me answer your original question.
Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
You really want to know about the final exit. I went through the first two phases. Yes. So yeah, the middle phase was me starting to just become more real CEO, more vision type work. And then a few years later, I started to realize that through the work that, okay, this company is doing a great job, but I don't feel like I wasn't really feeling aligned with me personally affecting its next major leap of growth. And something was just not adding up emotionally. I was ready for more. I was ready for something different, something of greater impact, while not selling out, like still allowing this company to have the impact that it's having. And when I first heard Elon Musk talk about basic income, I'm like, whoa, you mean you can have a society where like everyone does well together, where like we've ended poverty and also grown the economy, create more entrepreneurs, create more people taking risks. People can wake up in the morning and like not worry about ever having to eat, and what they can actually work out of inspiration, not desperation. Like just the absence of shame that a society would experience, like the elimination of millions and billions of shameful or scared thoughts, and replacing that with thoughts that could be towards abundance and other things. Like I couldn't believe it. Like, and you could still have that and still have, still have free market capitalism without the risk of moving towards socialism or government control structures, because basic income is fundamentally pro-free market, because it's not the government providing those services. The money goes back into private entrepreneurs solving problems for humanity, which is what's worked for us for the last 100 years. And like that just blew my mind. And it also blew my mind from a freedom perspective, because I grew up in a house of domestic violence. If my mom had money, she could have left, or at the very least, she would have had more respect, because money is often used as a means of coercion. Our economy is a lot based on coercion. All kinds of people are coerced into doing work that is fundamentally not good for them, is the only thing they can find around them. And they do it because they have no choice, and they don't have the means to take a long-term perspective. Like children of wealthy families can take a long-term perspective and really invest in their education, do something that's truly meaningful for them and the best fit for them. Not everyone can do that, and it's getting worse and worse every year. So I started to realize that, this is for some reason, this is something I became very preoccupied with, like a hobby. I was reading everything I could on progressive economics and about basic income, and I was seeing what's going on with the economy, and eventually I just realized that if I'm really honest with myself, like I just want to do more in this direction. And I suffered a lot of clash with my past identity. Like I saw myself, I was an entrepreneur. Like I was known and respected among entrepreneur circles as the remote companies guy, this guy doing this global business, which is with staff in 12 countries in China and Brazil. And I'm like, shit, what are my business owner friends going to think? Like, people are going to think I'm some kind of like socialist, even though they don't get it, that it's not socialist. And like, that's strange. All this self-doubt, and wow. And in the end, I just, it was a multi-year process to break through that. And realized I want to do this, and part of that process was also changing my relationship to money. Like I've been very successful in my business, and even before the basic income stuff, I developed a process I called a giving portfolio. And if you can Google "discover your giving portfolio" in my name, you'll find it. And I described a 3-year process where I went from treating money with fear, like money meant safety, towards money as a way to cause change and to help. And I created a portfolio method, like just like you have a stock portfolio, you can have a giving portfolio. It's a spreadsheet with pie charts and line graphs of things you're budgeting, choosing to donate to. You look at it once a month, you reconnect to those causes, you feel connected to them. It's not about impulse, it's more about intention. And that also led me eventually also towards realizing that almost all the causes I was donating to would be resolved if there was a basic income. So like, I'm an entrepreneur, I like things that scale. So let me just focus on this one thing, because if we solve basic income, we would solve like, I don't know, like almost all the problems that that tend to preoccupy a society. Not solve it fully, but get it way further ahead in terms of its progress.
So for people that don't know what basic income is, can you just in just a short little spot, like what exactly is basic income? And so people can understand what it is, because there's probably some preconceived ideas, and there's also just the not knowing what it is. And
sure. So imagine an economy that was generating a dividend, and I use the word dividend, that comes from stock investing. You know, you have an asset, it makes you money once a month. It's a passive income. Everyone in this podcast who's into real estate knows the value of a passive income. It's just a passive income that we've created from the collective wealth of society, from our technological gains, so that everyone can have a monthly payment or weekly payment enough to get people out of poverty. It's just part of citizenship. Everyone gets $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month as part of being alive, as part of the experience of being a citizen. And that's paid for through the tax system, but it's paid forward because with this money, people can get a head start in life. It's not a handout. It's a way to actually have the means to make long-term plans. It's also stimulating the economy, because a lot of people who are stuck in poverty, like, they cannot participate fully. They can't re-educate themselves. They can't even afford groceries. Some people can get so far behind. But, you know, it's not even about poverty, because so basically, yes, it is a monthly cash amount, just enough to get people out of poverty and expand people's horizons. That's what a basic income is. There's two kinds of basic income. There's one where it's a flat amount for everyone, including wealthy people. They get a dividend, let's say $1,000 a month, like Andrew Yang is proposing in the United States. The other kind is called a negative income tax, where like if you get zero, you get the full amount, and then it tapers off as you make more earned income, and maybe it tapers off around $60,000. At that point, you're not getting any extra. So both amounts have a huge impact also on the middle class. Because let's say you're a family that collectively your income is $40,000 a year. You guys, with your basic income, what you're netting, you might be netting an extra 15 between the two of you. That's a major impact on the health and the possibilities you have for your kids. Or let's say you're students. Instead of having to take two jobs while still in school because your parents are low income and they can't support you, you could just focus on school.
Yeah.
You know, you could just focus on school, because this money is enough for you to pay for food and for your rent with a few roommates. It's not enough for you to like have a luxury apartment downtown Toronto. You have to have several roommates, and you can afford food, and you can just focus on school. Or let's say you're someone who has a business idea who's currently working a dead-end job. You can afford to stop working for a year or two, focus on this business, and get it launched. And I personally know people who did that using various government support programs that were like a basic income, but were more entrepreneurial, and they now are millionaires. You know, because people had the chance.
Yeah.
And I did that for myself. Like when I was in my mid-20s, I took my life savings at the time, and I was able to down pay an income property, and the basic income I gave myself through the rental income was enough to address my fear, my scarcity mindset, and allow me to make bigger risks to start my business. And I don't think I would have started my business, at least not that year. Maybe would have started it 3 years later, and then would have failed because it would have been right after 2008 crisis. So the timing was everything, because I could follow that need, that drive, because I had the means to at that moment. So that's what a basic income could do.
You explain that so well, Floyd, so well. Like, you've obviously thought about this a lot. And I think it's really cool how you explained the results of it before you even explained really what it is. It's like, here's why we're doing it. I think that's incredible. You're very well spoken. I love it. I love hearing what you have to say. It's so easy to listen to, Floyd.
Thank you. Well, and there's one last thing I'll say about it, is that it's urgent. This is what I've said until now is the aspirational reasons for it. Yeah. The reason why it's urgent is that if you look at Western economies, particularly the United States and Canada, the economy is literally splitting in two. So what we're seeing is that 40 years of technological automation and all the things that technology has created, like globalization, which is really market forces meets lowering cost of communications, you know, thanks to email, thanks to all these things.
Yeah.
You know, the gig economy, which is, again, it's the app-driven slice and dice, lowered cost of communications, all these things, you know, and winner takes all economics, which is really the monopolization happening, which is, again, a factor of technology. Like, all these things have eroded the middle class. So having a big middle class was a feature of capitalism before the invention of computing and robotics. But once you could actually do routine work by computers, that could be codified in software, or by robotics, like the job opportunities for a high school educated person are increasingly less and less and less. And that's called the third industrial revolution, which is computing and robotics in the 70s. That screwed the future for people who are high school educated. People who are blue collar can no longer be valued for just the hard work from their own two hands. And we've seen incomes stagnate and decrease for that segment, which is like more than half the population. And now we're entering the fourth industrial revolution, which is artificial intelligence and advanced computing and robotics. And now even like surgeons and lawyers and doctors, like bankers, even high paid, highly educated routine work can be automated. And we're already seeing the impact of that, because we're seeing now we're in an economy where 40% of university grads are doing jobs that don't require a degree. Yeah. So if you're an employer and you could choose between someone who went to high school or someone went to university for a barista job, you might just choose the university one, because why not? You know, you just get more for more bang for the buck. So this is causing even more pressure on high school educated people who have even less opportunity. So the economy is splitting in two, and the two sides are the one side that is getting, there has been increases in high income jobs, of course, as the middle class has been declining. What we're seeing is, let me show you a prop. This will be fun.
Okay, cool.
This is what the economy looks like now.
This is a big dumbbell. Nice.
It used to be that the middle was bigger. What we're seeing now is an economy that's concentrating at the high income and the low income. The low income is bigger. There should be 3 plates here and only 2 over here.
Yeah.
And this economy of low is increasingly getting bigger. Technology is displacing middle income jobs, creating more low income jobs. And that side is seeing a worse mortality rate. People are dying younger. That side is seeing like much more income insecurity, and is not seeing the ladders into the middle class, as the middle class jobs themselves are we're getting less and less of them every year.
Is this why the other day I saw you on the news with a big group of people saying the robots are here?
Yeah, people need to know that this is not about a future jobless future with artificial intelligence swooping in to take your job. Robots have been here for 40 years, and the impact is the middle class is getting smaller, and most people are experiencing stagnant or decreasing wage growth. So that's the problem. The problem is not a jobless future. It's a future where only low-income work is available for most people. And then affects what you have is a permanent underclass. And an underclass is frankly un-Canadian.
That is, it's amazing. Floyd, we could literally do like 3 episodes on this topic and your passion just comes right out. And I think you're the person that introduced me to this whole thing. I would have been probably judgmental, a year or so ago, just wondering what this socialist thing is, and growing up in an Alberta world where entrepreneurial was there, and understand. And you've really opened my eyes. I've heard you on another podcast, and it just really helped me understand what you're doing. And it's to the point where I'm becoming a big fan of it. And so it's really neat. I think what you're doing is so important. I think educating people what it is, and that's what this is about as well. So I think you're going to be speaking, and also you're going to be on my expert panel at the event we have coming up in Toronto. You can go to benosterville.com/blowtheirminds. They can take a look at that. We'll have the link as well. It's going to be, it's called blow your customers' minds, keep them forever. Blow your customers' minds, the marketing side. Keep them forever is the relationship side. And that's what this is going to be about. Floyd, we are so pumped that you're going to be on the stage with us. I'm so excited. So there's a little commercial there. And so when people are listening, they can check that out. But because of that, I would love to just throw some questions at you about business that you could probably give some advice on. I could literally sit and ask you questions all day. I think you've just got a crazy mind, and I'd love to listen and tap into that. So I get to do that right now. So a couple of things, a lot of what I do and a lot of this podcast, a lot of what's teaching is about the personal development, connecting to business success. And you've referred to that a few times regarding getting over your own stuff, getting over your relationship with money. Like all this stuff sounds a lot more personal than just business. Do you believe that, how do you see the personal growth of a human being affecting their business? That tie, connecting the dots. What's your thoughts around that?
I think it's crucial because, again, I've always been my own biggest obstacle, and we don't know what we don't know. I think the best thing a friend can do is to mirror you and show you what you can't see in yourself. And personal growth experiences, whether it's going to a retreat or whatnot, is one of the main things. Is you're just taking time away with yourself in a context where you're thinking about your own life. Like most people don't even do that. So I've often wondered about the value of some of the things I've done. Like am I really getting value from what's being discussed here? But I'm also getting value just sitting here and thinking about life.
Yeah, about it. So true. So true. Yeah, it's hard to quantify the value when we're looking at everything through economics, when it's a little bit abstract, right? But I think this is what's happening. I think, like, if you're not fearful, what would you do? If you're not busy in your mind, if you had less pressure in your head, what would you do? It's actually really easy to start financially quantifying it. Like, I've seen people get out of their own way and their business doubles when they've tried so many times learning and educating and reading thousands of books and networking. Nothing worked until they got out of their own way. And I've seen that. And that's where I feel like, I think logically, like you just said, like, a lot of things you do, like even how you did the IBM social network, that's a real logical financial gain move. And I think that is something that I see changing in our circles. We're starting to see that a lot, and people are really diving into going the logical move versus the passion move versus the reasoning behind why you're doing something is more important a lot of times. I think you'll find that when you work on yourself, because you got to align to what you love. You know, you can't just focus on just making the dollar bills, even though that's important. So I think
that's right. So yeah, I think anyone who's serious about growth needs to be actively seeking their own lack of awareness. You know, actively seeking the discover the patterns that the conditioning that they're following and what's underneath it, and like let that go. You know, I think that's probably number one, like the core thing that personal growth is about. And one thing I love about the work with Philip is that he was never about like acquiring new knowledge. He was never about learning something new. It was actually about removing the obstacles.
So true.
And the obstacles are within us. It may be habits and conditions that are based on some underlying emotion that we don't even know where that came from. That requires analysis, that requires leaning into it. And then you might find that maybe relates to something in your childhood or something from before. And so to be always actively sort of leaning in, especially to the painful places, is a key part of growth. So when someone tells me, hey, you're wrong about this, or you're acting like that, I'm like, wow, it's like someone just gave me some gold. Like, this is great. Like I want to understand myself better and have a better act more from reality and from awareness. And most of us are just broken records playing like our past conditioning. And I don't claim to be anywhere special now. I'm still probably playing past conditioning.
Guaranteed. But even the fact of having had that awareness, like Floyd, one thing I know, I've had a crazy traumatic beginning in my life, and I've had to work that out forever. Like it still comes back, and like you just said. But the one thing I've really been huge for me is I used to want to like get myself fixed. I wanted to level up internally. I wanted to become enlightened. And the thing is, what I realize is when I just accept myself for real, for who I am today, I feel like that is when I become enlightened. It's almost like I'm still on a quest to be whole and healthy and the most highest potential person I can be. But the thing is, I found that the insanity of actually working on personal growth used to be like my quest to fix me or to make me better, which then I would accept myself and all of those things. But what the coolest thing was is that I realized this is who I am, and that's who I am today. And it just became so freeing just to be me with the way I am, you know, with my spelling errors, with my sporadic behavior sometimes, and just really embrace who I am. I feel like that the quest for personal growth has become popular, but I think it's also dangerous because you never accept yourself and you never will arrive. So there's this side effect to always be aware of.
That's really important. I heard it said that no growth is possible when there's shame. You know, like we can't. Actually, even recently, it's funny. I've been last year and a half. I went through like a health kind of weight loss and health growth. I lost like 25 pounds or more packed on muscle, and I got to my goal. And once I got there, like I got to 170, plus like having put on like 10 pounds of muscle tissue. Once I got there, I'm like, yeah, I'm here now. And then like within 2 months, I put 10 pounds back on. And then we tried to get back on it. And then I was just kind of staying steady around 180 for like 6 weeks. And the coach realized, you know what, you're probably fatigued. Like, you know, you're fatigued from trying to lose weight. And maybe it's more important now to focus on some self-acceptance and stabilization. Stabilize, like learn a healthy relationship with food so you can stay where you're at and like love how you are and love yourself, because I'm very happy with how I look right now. And like it's great. Like I'm still much better than it used to be. And then once we go for that for a few months, then we'll go back on the weight loss track. But it starts from like now a period of self-acceptance. And already I've been doing that for a couple of days, and I've been eating less just because I'm just not as stressed about losing weight.
That's amazing. There's so much to unpack around that. So I got another question. We'll just keep moving toward a couple questions here. I know our time is going to be up in about 15 minutes, and I want to get a couple more ideas and things out of you. And so on that note, what idea in business should people let go of?
Ooh, wow. Well, I guess looking at my own story. Okay, one thing I find myself frequently correcting, not correcting, but realigning with the staff, because there's no right and wrong with these things. It's just something that worked for me. One thing I find that a discussion I have quite frequently over the years with staff is, if we want to increase profits, I personally think that the road is not always cost cutting or efficiencies. I think a different way is to improve product quality and improve product market fit. So if your customers, if you find the right customer that actually loves what you're producing, and you're producing more and more of what that person likes, regardless of trying to hit a much bigger market, but really focus on a niche that you can serve well, just to keep increasing quality, and then keep slowly increasing prices. And then eventually you'll reach a point of price elasticity where you've maximized your ability to serve this particular niche and serve them really well. So those people become huge fans and become like huge promoters for you. And that's a very different approach to growing business than what we're typically taught. We're typically taught like huge numbers, huge growth, grow, cut costs, increase volume, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. The difference there is between the Android or the iPhone strategy. Like, like I know I heard the iPhone is like one point was only 11% of all smartphone sales, but was 70% of the profits of the whole smartphone industry, because they had a really high quality product that appealed to a sophisticated buyer, so where they can keep increasing their margins by adding to quality. And then the Android ecosystem was all about low cost and volume, and everyone's like competing with each other, trying to in a race to the bottom on price. And and obviously eventually that could work for 10 years. Now it's not working as much, because now some of the Android phones are like so really high quality, but that works for a while. So I often say I want to be the iPhone of tech conferences, and in some ways it'll help us scale our mission more. Like the purpose of my business is to accelerate the software side of human progress. So we're helping software engineers be better so we can accelerate the software side of human progress, because technology is improving the lot of all of humanity. So if we serve the leaders, if we serve the technical influencers, the people who are senior developer, or technical team lead, technical architects, and a smaller number of them at a conference, like 1,000, as opposed to a conference that costs half the price and reached 5,000 people of all skill sets, I think we're better doing what we're doing now, because we can really serve this group with like a high-end experience, with like more speakers, more education opportunities, and then they go back to their companies and they share what they learned, because they're the influencers. So I guess one thing we can unlearn is don't be the Android, maybe be the iPhone.
So, Floyd, it's like totally in line with everything that the whole event is about, is client experience. And it's like, if we considered that the conversation that's happening behind our back is our only way we can market, how would our business look?
Wow.
And that's the whole foundations of everything I do in business and everything that I'm teaching on these stages. And so I talk about, it's like, if we were to do a client experience audit, I bet you we could double a revenue if we could actually do this. Exactly. You just say it way more smarter and sophisticated. I'm like a guy off the street talking about it, but that's exactly the number one mission that I have is if you can blow their minds. So why I say it that way is like when you see something, if you can create that emotional, like, holy shit. Like if I came and said to a guy on the street, say, hey, I just want to give you $1,000. Like what reaction would we be getting? And that's what I'm obsessed about in business, is how do I create that reaction on every single interaction I do? That holy shit, because that guy, who would he tell about that 1,000? Everyone. And so we're looking at marketing so much like, why don't you blow their minds? And it actually is marketing. But then what happens is, in a world where everything is manipulated and completely manipulated by different pictures, get this reaction, and they're just trying to get you to buy. Like, the referral is becoming the gold, the actual referral. And even referrals nowadays can be a little bit goofy because they're referring the guy that needs work versus actually referring the best guy. So you have to work on that. But it's just so true. I love this combination of how we both see things from a different angle. I feel like I'm like a guy holding a concrete finishing shovel or something, and you're like some genius out of school, but we're both saying the same thing. I think it's definitely a conversation that we can keep bringing to the world. I love that. Now,
and for a lot of people who are our audience, if they're running smaller teams, there's another saying, and I remember having a discussion with the leader of our Chinese business. They became really successful and ended up buying us out, even though we incubated them and created it from scratch. So and like, cool. I liked being. There's a saying in tech circles, to be small and beautiful versus big and, I forgot what the saying is, big and something. And he was moving at China scale, so like they had to grow because the economy's going nuts, and he didn't want to be small and beautiful. He wanted to like just grow and like super high volumes, like serve a lot of people in low margins. So like he was running a business on 5% margins that was growing really big, but yet doesn't have the kind of cash flow sort of comfort and ability to invest and invest in quality that we had. Because for me, margin means safety. If we have margin, it means this business can be long-lived and like we can survive a downturn. And so I preferred being small and beautiful. So a lot of people, like just some people have some egocentric attachment to seeing themselves as CEO of some 200-person company. I don't give a shit about that. I'd rather be small and beautiful, have an impact on the customer segment we care about.
Amazing.
And have good profit margins. So so we can do it for a long time.
I love that. I love that. Margin is safety. I love that. It's cool. So here's another question. Just think about people that are super planners and people that are more forward motion. If you had to choose, because I think you're super smart when it comes to this, but you probably make a plan. But I also know you're an executor, so it's cool to ask you this. If you had to choose, is create a plan or move forward, what would you choose?
Well, we both have a coach who said that in the absence of clarity, take action.
That's what he says. Who cares what he says? What do you think? What would you have to choose? I know that's what he teaches, and that we got some truth.
Well, that's very contextual. I think if you're a small business or if you're talking about a problem that's really individual, then you should just move forward. Because if you're talking about breaking through some kind of emotional block or analysis paralysis, move forward.
Move forward, yeah.
If you're talking about launching a complex product that requires the alignment of like 30 people, you need to make a plan because people need to know what you're talking about. And like that's kind of like been probably one of the main issues I've dealt with running remote businesses all my life is you need to align people. And sometimes it doesn't matter how many times they hear you say it; it needs to be written down. There's a concept now getting more popular in business called neurodiversity. That it's not just diversity of race, it's diversity of neurological types. Some people are more introvert, more extrovert, some people are more ADD, some are not. Having things written down is a way to kind of get everyone on the same page. Although some people who are more extrovert, more emotion driven, they still need to hear you say it because there's some sort of transmission they're just going to get and they're going to feel.
Yeah, I would have to hear you.
But others need to see it written down to okay, this is what we're doing, this is solid, this is concrete. So your question, it depends on the context.
Yeah, it reminds me of Cameron Herold, who I've had on the show a couple of times. Do you know Cameron by chance?
Yeah.
He wrote the book Vivid Vision, and it feels like that's really in line. Like it's an amazing little tiny book to read, and it's about really building that vivid vision, putting it down, and then when you show that to your teams and everything like that, then it just really aligns to me. I think that's something that I can work on in my life as well. I'm very verbal, very much inspirational leader, very much about human connection and building relationships. But the writing it down part is definitely not my first thing I'm doing. I'm just like half illiterate sometimes. So it's very challenging, but you can get someone, that's where you outsource it, to get someone to hear you and write your vision down for you. So I understand that as well.
Yeah.
Now I always on this show, I think I always want to put myself in a position to learn as well, to be challenged. So near the end of all the shows I always ask if you had a question for me. You don't have to have a question for me. I'll say you can just even give me a smart ass remark or not have a question. But if you had a question for me, I'm open, and I would love to be able to answer any question you have for me.
Yeah. All right. I've been feeling like somehow my this journey towards doing this basic income work. I started a nonprofit. I have some people working in this nonprofit. I've never really had a relationship to money like that to actually try and do good with it. And I'm doing things that I have no experience with, are like, I'm setting goals that are kind of fantastic, and I have to have faith that we're going to figure it out along the way. And that kind of surrendering into faith is new, because in my business things were pretty routine and repetitive, and that was safe. And that's partially why I left. I needed to do things that were big and scary. It's not that I needed scary things, but I had this image of basic income, this vision, and I need to pursue it. So I would ask you, I mean, how do you move towards your fear? How do you give yourself permission to do things that you have no clue how are you going to do it, but move at it full force without self-doubt? Like, how do you address the self-doubts that come up?
It's because I don't have education, because I've lived on the street, because I've had to kind of figure that out a bit, Floyd. I am nowhere near finished, but I'm just saying the one thing I realized is self-doubt doesn't go away. It never does. It just never does. And if we think it's going to go away, I think it's an illusion. I think it can get quieter. I think we just need to become a relationship with that self-doubt. I really do. I think it's just part of what I have. And it doesn't mean that I have to be motivated or influenced by it, but it's just part of what happens with my story. Like, I've got a lot of, like, if you think about it, let's say you had a wound, it never heals perfectly. It always has a scar. So you're like, hey, Ben, how do you get rid of that scar? I'm like, it doesn't go away. It just doesn't impact me. It doesn't hurt anymore. And so I think moving forward, I also, this is the way I look at it is our brains give us historical data to predict the future. And so I have to create new data. That's where faith comes in. And so I have to know that my brain is giving me every single bit of education I've ever learned from the past to predict my future, but that has nothing to do with the future. It's keeping me safe. Like, if I slipped on the ice, my brain's going to say, hey, watch out. There's ice there. Don't slip again. So it serves a purpose. But I think when we're moving towards something in big dreams that we don't really know much about, or we just have this weird push toward it, that's faith to me. And I think once you have a win in that moment, then your brain kicks in and goes, oh, you can do this. Oh, I see how this works. And it starts giving you information to start supporting you. And that's that step of faith. So I don't have the answer. I just know that for me, I have to move forward. And the other thing is this: I can't fail is the mindset that I have now. And so I don't have a mindset where I can fail. Like, I in a weird way, I could live on the streets again. Like, it would suck. It would suck. And I think my ego would be crushed, but I'm willing to, in a weird way. Like, I'm not scared to hit the bottom. And it's not kamikaze. It's just like this conscious thing about, it's weird. Like, when you're happy on the inside, you kind of arrived. I'm not always happy, but I got an amazing marriage. I've got good kids. I've got like so many things I've won in. And so I just move forward. And if I can't lose, it's just data. It's just data for me. It's like I move forward, and whatever happens, I find out what happens. Obviously, my dreams are big, and I want to dominate the world. I want to do some really cool things. I want to be wealthy, and I have all these visions, but I'm not totally attached to that. So it's kind of an awkward, weird answer, but that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Well, you're also you have a very unique relationship with failure that, to get to that place where, you're not even worried about being on the streets again. You've been there. A lot of people, that would be crushing. They would commit suicide. They would do all kinds of things. And so help me build a world where the worst case scenario is not starving and being on the streets and not having to turn to drugs or anything like that. And that's what a basic income will bring us. Where like no one ever has to worry about how they're going to feed their children. And and then we can build from there, build to our highest potential, chase our dreams.
I love that, Floyd. Do you have that itch? Do you have that itch in you where it's like, I wonder how far I can go?
It was never about accomplishment for me, to be honest. It was never about that. I have no political aspiration. If I have to go in that direction to make this happen, I will, but I see it as a necessity, not as a goal. Yeah. And right now I'm trying to not do that. I'm trying to work through others and give them talking points and research and connect activists to other politicians. And but yeah, to me, it's about living the most authentic life possible, where I'm doing what I feel is needs to be done and is right. And sometimes it feels like this journey recently feels like constantly teetering on the razor's edge between between the unknown, fear of the unknown, and also moving ahead further. And like, I think a gift that we both received from the coaching we've got is to be comfortable leaning in to the unknown, as opposed to having to know where you're going, have the plan fully baked out. So
that's beautiful, beautiful.
Because I also kind of think that setting more of an egoic goal, like I'm going to be a CEO of $200 million company, blah blah blah, that kind of locks you. It kind of hardens you, and then you stop being connected to reality, to the flow and the softness and of what's around. So, and I think we should avoid those kinds of goals that can harden us. Now, there's a saying that plans are useless, but planning is invaluable. Plans are useless.
It's really cool.
Planning is invaluable. Plans are useless.
Heard that before. Yeah, that's
so
cool.
The act of making a plan, setting some goals, is invaluable because it aligns you, and it also aligns you with a team, so they know where we're going. But the moment the plan is made, it's already obsolete, and like, who knows, maybe you won't get there. And if you tighten too much grip on those goals, that can be dangerous, and you might lose opportunities that for pivoting that are right in front of you. And so that it's a mixed bag when having big goals. I think they're useful insofar as they help you further align you to what you should be doing with your life. But if they're driven by ego, and they're driven by what others think of you, or proving something to someone else, then that's dangerous.
Yeah. I think on that note, Floyd, we'll wrap it up. I think there is absolute huge gold nuggets in this episode. I think people are going to seriously fall in love with you. And we never even talked about Star Trek. Check
this out.
There it is.
The Klingon Empire. I drink my tea like a real Klingon.
Dude, I actually bought you something. I haven't sent it to you yet. It was a Star Trek thing. I bought it for you like 4 or 5 months ago. I'm like, I'm getting this to Floyd, and I had a car parked that I didn't drive for a while, and I just checked it. I'm like, oh geez, it's in the back seat, so I got something for you. I may have to just give it to you when I get to see you in Toronto here in a couple months. So
awesome.
Anyways, man. Okay, man. Well, thanks so much, Floyd, for being on the show. I love it. I can't wait to see you in Toronto soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.